But first, this election. This election shames the Australian media and damns Labor. Yesterday, Peter Dutton was smashed for saying something false, that Indonesia's president had confirmed a report that Russia had asked to base long-range military aircraft in Indonesia. Well, the opposition leader corrected himself in his debate with Anthony Albanese last night. The mistake was trivial.
It was a mistake, and I'm happy to admit that what we got from the Indonesian authorities in the reports, and the Prime Minister commented on these reports yesterday as well, was that the sources inside the Prabowo government confirmed that that was the case.
Now, note the double standards. Dutton was smashed. But today, the Prime Minister stood in front of the media and again told lies, even some new lies, lies that threaten your standard of living, yet not one journalist contradicted or criticised Albanese for the ones I'm going to show you here. But just before I do, let me quickly deal with the Labor lie from yesterday that Dutton was talking about. The spin, the Labor spin, that a report by Jane's military intelligence site was false. Now, Labor yesterday, I showed you last night, tried to make you think that no, Russia hadn't asked to put long-range military aircraft in Indonesia. Indonesia, where they then could back China in a war against Taiwan, or the US base in Guam, or Australia. No.
We have not got confirmation of that approach.
In fact, Indonesia and Russia have now both refused to deny that that request was in fact made, because it was. And now the senior journalist who wrote that Jane's report says we at Jane's stand by this story and it is accurate. The story was written following a few weeks of speaking to well-placed sources within the Indonesian government. And to back that up, the spokesman for Indonesia's foreign ministry said today, no, there wouldn't be an actual Russian base in Indonesia, but, and it's a very big but, added, Indonesia will receive and permit military aircraft or vessels from other nations on peaceful missions to visit Indonesia. And it looks very much like those other nations very much do include Russia. How come Albanese didn't know of that Russian approach? Now, that's the real issue, along with the fact that, here comes Russia and our military has been run down. Those are the real issues, not Peter Dutton misspeaking. But to today's lies. Last night, Peter Dutton debated Albanese on a very typical ABC event, not one question about the top issue for voters, the very real cost of living crisis, but there was a question about a very unreal global warming crisis. Labor and the ABC jumped today all over Dutton's reasonable response.
I don't know, David, because I'm not a scientist, and I can't tell you whether the temperature has risen in Thargomindah as a result of climate change or that the water levels are up in Thargomindah's latest flood as a result of climate change. And I think the honest answer for most people is that they don't know, and there are scientists who can provide advice.
The science is very clear. It doesn't mean that every single weather event is because of climate change. It does mean that the science told us that the events would be more extreme and they'd be more frequent. And that is what we are seeing playing out.
He does say that? In fact, he doubled down on that nonsense today.
If there's one thing that stunned me about last night, it was Peter Dutton being asked not a very difficult question about whether he agreed with the science on climate change. And effectively, he said he's not a scientist and couldn't say. There were different views. I would have thought that the science is very clear on climate change. And when you have a tropical cyclone headed for the coastline here of southeast Queensland and northern New South Wales, then I don't know what it takes to give a wake-up call to the coalition.
Not one journalist there called out Albanese for lying. First, as you heard for yourself, Dutton did not say what Albanese claimed he said. And second, the argument is not about whether the climate changes. It does, and Dutton today said it does. Third, tropical low Trevor, that tropical low that hit Australia last month, it was not a cyclone by the time it got here. It was not a cyclone. It wasn't strong enough. And fourth, Trevor was not evidence of an extreme event caused by global warming or evidence of more extreme weather events of any kind. If anything, the very opposite. Just go to the Bureau of Meteorology yourself, check it out, shows very clearly we're actually getting fewer cyclones over the past 50, 75 years. The Bible of the global warming movement, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, its report says exactly the same. And what's more, predicts we will get even fewer cyclones. But there's Albanese babbling, oh, cyclone, global warming. And to the journalists today saying, oh, yes, but what about floods? They're more and they're worse. Again, look at the data. Overall, no real change in total rain over Australia over the last 125 years. Or look just at our eastern states if you must. True, they have had a bit more rain lately than 120 years ago, but a bit less since the wet years of the 1970s. So again, no signal here of more extreme weather. But if Albanese was telling you absolute fantasies today, the Treasurer was outright, bald-faced lying. And this is Labor's trick, by the way, in this campaign, to lie with total conviction.
Sacking 40,000 people won't be enough for Peter Dutton to pay for his nuclear reactors. There is no way he can find the $600 billion he needs for his nuclear reactors without coming after Medicare again like he did when he was the health minister, without big cuts to health and education. And that's more or less what Peter Dutton admitted last night.
Again, no one there called out those lies. Lie one, no, Dutton isn't saying he'll sack 40,000 public servants. He says he won't replace them. Big difference. Lie two, Dutton's promised nuclear power stations will not cost $600 billion. That's 4 times the likely cost, maybe more. And lie three, no, Dutton does not have secret cuts to Medicare. He's in fact promised $9 billion extra for it. That's the key pillars of Labor's campaign. Outright lies. I've never seen an election like it. But look, you know, Dutton gets one minor fact wrong, corrects himself, unfit to govern. Albanese and Chalmers lie and lie again, right in the faces of the media. After, by the way, winning the last election with another huge lie. Remember, their green schemes would cut power bills by $275. And these liars have the hide to say that Dutton is unfit to govern? It's the tragedy of this campaign. Labor is hopeless at governing, but brilliant at lying, and so good at it that they're stealing this election. What does that say about our country?